This video will demonstrate the advanced drawing items featured in ActionFlow. The basic video showed how to turn an edge into a finished edge by clicking on it. In addition to doing so, if you hold down the Control key and click, you can create a negative edge, which would now subtract that edge from your total finished linear footage. This can be useful when one top butts up against another top that has a finished edge already. Notice that your net amount of finished edge that's calculated would be correct by doing so. You can also hold down the Shift key and you can click on that edge to create a second edge on your countertops. The pricing for the second edge would be calculated based off of the edge that was selected in the second edge drop-down box. Notice over here that you can click here to show the dimensions on the inside of your countertop. You can switch them to the outside, or you can actually make them hidden. Now, if I select a countertop that is not rectangular, I can use this Use Rectangle checkbox to draw a rectangle around the top. In that case, the square footage of the entire rectangle will be used for the quote calculation rather than just the square footage for the countertop itself. In addition to your regular drawing items, you can actually right-click on a countertop to see a list of options that can be added. I'll start with an angle. If you click on that, and then if you hover over your countertop, you can see the angle here. This is a 6-inch leg by a 6-inch leg. You can come over here and you can adjust the legs. So this would become a 12 and a 6. If you happen to know the hypotenuse, you can add that here. So for this example, let's say this is a 15-inch, and then you can see how it calculates your legs. Once you get the angle to the size that you want it, you can left click on your countertop, and that will save it here. When angles or other items are added, if you hover over the text, and you'll get this cursor will turn into an eraser, you can left click on it to erase the items. You can also apply an angle to a inside edge as well, like so, on the countertop if you wish to do that. The next thing that we'll look at is the arc. The arc applies to a straight edge, and the inches of arc is the distance between the edge and the outside of the arc itself. So if you wanted to make the curve more prominent, you could just change that to a 5 and you can see your arc gets bigger. Or you can also change that and make that a concave arc as well. And how you would do that is you would go ahead and put a negative here. So if you change that to a negative, you can see that the arc actually would go inside of the countertop. You can also do a bump out. So for a bump out, you can enter the distance from the corner and then the depth and the width. So for this example, we're going to do a 5-inch distance from the corner. We're going to do a 10-inch depth by 20 inches wide. So if you hover that box over your countertop, you can add your bump out like so. If you wanted to make a notch or a cutout into the top, you could actually do a negative bump out, and that'll actually put the notch inside the countertop for you like so. There is a thing that you can do which is called an ellipse, and that's added by first creating a rectangle top. So you're going to go over here and create the length and the depth that you want on your countertop. So let's say we're going to do a 40 by 40 inch top. Then we're going to click on that top and we're going to select the ellipse, and then we're going to add it to the rectangle like so. If you want that to be a perfect circle like you see here, you would just start with that perfectly square countertop. A few other things that you can do: if you wanted to turn this countertop piece into an L top here, you can click on that and you can add your L top in like so. You can change the length and see how long you want that to be, and then you can just add that onto your countertop like that. You could also put in a negative length if you wanted to create a notch in a countertop as well. So you could do that here, and then you could also put the notch inside that countertop like that. Now, a few other things that you can do, you can also put a radius on a countertop, and a radius is going to be similar to your angle. So you would say how many inches of radius that you wanted to put, and you can adjust that here. So you can put a 10 in to make your radius show up on the countertop. You could also do an inside radius if you choose to do so as well, like so. You also have sinks and cooktops, and they are also added in this way. If you wanted to add an undermount sink on this, you would just select this top. You can select undermount. If you wanted to select a sink, you can add it to the cutout at the same time. So as you see, there is your undermount cutout. You can also choose to hide this center line if you want to by clicking on the Show Center Line box. You can also erase the sink, kind of like you can do your other items on the tops as well. We also have seams and splits, and they are similar. A split is where you're just going to come in and you're actually going to split a top. So you'd right click on that, you would find your split, and you would just place that where you want it to go. And as you can see, it did split our top into two different pieces here. Another thing that you can do is your seam, which is going to be similar, but it doesn't actually split your top. When you actually do a seam, it will become a dotted line on the top, but it actually remains in one piece. So if you click to add the seam here, if you hover over that seam, you can see that it did turn into that dotted line. You can actually click on that, you can move that seam, or you could get rid of that altogether if you wish to do so. Oops. Also just wanted to call out to make sure that when you're doing your seam to stay close to that inside edge. As you notice, you can go to that corner and then you can snap that seam, and you can see that it does snap out to that outside corner for you. Once you have a seam on a top, you can come over to this button here, which is going to be your split seams button. By doing so, when you click on that, you can see that the countertop actually split that seam into two places. So these are actually two different tops now. We do go over that in more detail in the fabrication layout video. There is also a feature that was added, and it is the text box. So you can move the text box by clicking. You can type this here, so you can put test box. You can tab that to save it. If you click on it and pick the little square, you can move this over to a countertop as well. So you're able to actually place that on any item on your drawing. If you hit enter, it will save it. If you no longer need the text box, you can click on it and click on the red X, and it will close that out for you. Another useful button that you may use would be your extract splash. If you click on this button, you will see that it has converted our backsplash pieces to actual countertops. This can also be useful for lamination pieces as well, and you can view those now on the drawing. That concludes the video for the advanced drawing features.